So this week's Torah portion is the second Parshat of Sefer Vayikra, the book of Leviticus. Parshat Tzav, Tzav meaning command. God commands Moshe to tell the Kohanim to make sure that the fires on the altar are burning and burn all the time, never to go out. And then we have a description of the various sacrifices that were brought to the Mishkan and later to the two temples. One of the sacrifices that is spoken about in this week's Torah portion is the Zevach Hashlamim, which is variously translated as either the offerings of well-being or the sacrifices of peace. So Shlamim, from the word Shalom, meaning peace, meaning completeness, wholeness, sometimes translated as an offering of well-being. And the Parashah categorizes two types of Zevach Hashlamim, two types of sacrifices of well-being or sacrifices of peace. The first type is a sacrifice of hoda'ah, of giving thanks. And then the other type is subdivided into two. So Zevach Nadarim, a sacrifice of vows. When you vow to bring us an offering, or you make a vow to God, you bring an offering to mark that idea that you've made a promise to God. And Zevach Nedarim, which is an offering of votive offering, a volunteer offering that you bring. So on the one hand, you have Zevach Nedarim or Zevach Nevuchim, which is the offerings of a vow or a votive offering. And the other category you have offering of Todah, of thanksgiving. And they're distinguished because the offering of thanksgiving is accompanied with unleavened bread, and you're meant to eat it on the same day that you bring the offering, whereas the other types of Zevach Shlamim, other types of peace offering, you can eat over 2 days. So there's a distinction made between the Todah offering and the other offerings. Why is this distinction made? Because when you bring an offering of thanksgiving, you're not gaining anything by bringing it. You're not gaining God's blessings, you're not gaining material or spiritual well-being from it. You're just thanking God, the Creator, for what you have, the blessings that you have. And that is a theme which is picked up by the rabbis, and a theme which is found throughout Jewish tradition and throughout Jewish liturgy, the Jewish prayers, the offering of thanksgiving. So there's a teaching in the Talmud recorded, a teaching of Rabbi Meir, which is recorded in the Talmud, which says you should give 100 blessings, say 100 blessings of thanksgiving every single day of your life. So some people take it literally, and they literally bless everything that they come across. That is good. But I think the idea that Rabbi Meir was teaching is that we should give thanks. We shouldn't keep on complaining all the time, but give thanks. So interestingly, I read a midrash about Pesach. Pesach is a festival of thanksgiving, thanking God for redeeming us from slavery and looking forward to a future redemption of the entire world. Giving thanks for our freedom, for our human dignity, and praying that all people should experience freedom and human dignity. As Midrash teaches that when the Israelites passed through the Sea of Reeds, so the seventh day of Pesach is the anniversary of the Sea of Reeds, the parting of the Sea of Reeds. And as you know the story very well, the Israelites are caught between the Sea of Reeds on the one side and Pharaoh's pursuing army on the other, because Pharaoh had regretted letting the Israelites go free, so he gathers his warriors onto chariots and they chase after the Israelites. And the Israelites don't know what to do. They're caught. And they call out to Moses. Moses prays to God. God tells Moses to stretch his arm over the sea. The sea parts. The Israelites walk through on dry ground. And the Egyptians pursue them. But as the last Israelite climbs up onto the opposite bank, the waters close in on the Egyptians and drown them. The Midrash says that 2 Israelites named Reuven and Shimon are walking through this dry ground, but they complain because it's full of mud. The ground is muddy because it had just been underwater. And they complain about the mud. And they say, we had mud in Egypt. We made bricks from the mud. Why do we have to have mud now? This is a wonderful miracle that happens. The sea parts. The Israelites walking through the Sea of Reeds, yet they're complaining about the mud. And that's what human nature is about. Often we don't see the bigger picture, we don't see the beauty that surrounds us, we don't appreciate our blessings, but we complain about what we don't have. So Rabbi Meir is teaching us that we should also remember to thank God for the blessings that we have. And throughout Jewish liturgy, we have this idea of thanksgiving. So in the morning blessings, we have Birkat, Brachot, Nisim Shabakol Yom, our daily miracles, which we take for granted, simply being able to open our eyes and to see and to walk and to wear clothes. And so we say those blessings every single morning, and those blessings are kept into our synagogue service. So if you come on Shabbat mornings or any other morning, we read those blessings, we chant those blessings, giving thanks to God for things that we take often for granted. It's no coincidence that the penultimate blessing of the Amidah, which we just davened now, is the Modim Anachnu Lach prayer, the Hoda'ah prayer, the thanksgiving prayer, where we thank God for our miracles, morning, noon, and night that we have, that we experience. And on Chanukah and Purim, we add an extra paragraph, thanking God for the miracles that caused us to be redeemed, to be saved from, in Purim's case, physical genocide, and in Chanukah's case, from intellectual and ideological eradication of our values. Whenever we survive a serious illness or an accident, we say the Gomel prayer, the Gomel blessing, where we thank God before the open Torah scroll for our blessings, for saving us, redeeming us, and saving us from this illness or this accident. And the response is that just as God has been good to you, may be good to everybody else, to all of us. We thank God for the food we eat. So we say a blessing before we eat. And the rabbis compose many blessings. If you open up a siddur, a traditional siddur, you'll find a whole list of blessings for taste, for smell, for sight. A special blessing for a rainbow. We see in the sky, thanking God for remembering the covenant that God made with humanity, that God will never again destroy the entire world because of the wickedness of human beings. And so we also thank God for the food after we've eaten our meal, after we've sated and satisfied. Torah says, once you have eaten and are satisfied, then you shall bless God for the land and for the food. So that's why we have Birkat Hamazon, the grace after meals, not before meals, because when you're hungry, you're not going to be thankful. You want to eat. Once you've replenished yourself, you feel more thankful. And so, coming back to Pesach, which is starting soon, we're starting tomorrow night, thanksgiving to God for the miracles of redemption, of freeing us from slavery. And we also, Pesach is a type of hope for a future redemption. So we have Elijah's cup, we wait for Elijah, we open the door for Elijah comes in, symbolizing the coming of Messianic age. I'm not saying that I'm Elijah, but like he waited for me to come this evening because I was late, so we wait for Elijah to come, knocking on our door. So I think what's important is we forget often to simply say thank you, not only to God, but to each other. And how it's so satisfying and nice when someone says thank you to you. Thank you so much for what you've done. Brings a smile on their face. And I make a point of thanking people that help me, whether it's in the supermarket, the cashier, or whether it's people that I employ to help in the house. Every time they go, I say thank you. And I think it's important to get into that mindset. And this is what Rabbi Meir is teaching, and this is what the Tzav offering in Parshat Tzav, the Zevach Shlamim for Todah, for thanksgiving, is saying that it's such a special offering that you should accompany it with unleavened bread, and you should eat it on that same day. In other words, you should say thank you, not wait to say thank you, but use every opportunity you can to say thank you to each other, to yourselves even, and of course to God. So that's an important lesson that we learned from this week's Torah portion leading into Pesach.